August 24th, 1943, 05:47 hours. Dawn over Wake Island. The Pacific lies flat as polished steel. A low haze clings to the atoll's coral rim. From the east, 6 Grumman F6F-3 Hellcats climb out of USS Yorktown's deck, engines snarling through the salt air. Lieutenant Junior Grade Hiroshi Tanaka, leading 12 Mitsubishi A6M30s from Roy, spots the intruders at 22,000 feet. He signals a gentle split S. Confidence courses through his cockpit. The Zero has ruled these skies for 2 years. The Hellcats do not turn. They accelerate. Blue noses grow larger. Tanaka's wingman, Petty Officer First Class Saburo Sakai, squints through his gun sight. "They're heavy," he mutters. The Americans dive, machine guns stutter. Tracers stitch the sky. A Zero folds mid-wing, spiraling into the lagoon. Tanaka banks hard. Another Hellcat fills his windshield. The shock hits first. Then the fire. December 1941. Pearl Harbor still burns in American memory. Across the Pacific, the Mitsubishi A6M0 slices through Allied aircraft like paper. At Coral Sea in May 1942, Japanese naval pilots claim 43 kills for 3 losses. Over Midway the following month, Lieutenant Commander John S. Thach's Wildcats manage a desperate beam defense, yet still lose 24 fighters to the Zero's superior climb and turn. U.S. Navy intelligence dissects a crashed Zero on Akutan Island in July 1942. Engineers measure the airframe, 370 Habersetten, Sadifin. Horsepower less than the Wildcat. No armor, no self-sealing tanks. The secret is weight, 5,300 pounds empty versus the F4F's 7,000. Japanese pilots train for 3 years before combat. Americans rotate in after 6 months. By early 1943, carrier air groups hemorrhage experienced aviators. Rear Admiral John H. Towers demands a new fighter. Grumman responds with the F6F Hellcat, designed from the ground up to counter the Zero. The prototype flies on. June 26, 1942. The Navy orders 1,000 before the first combat. Essex-class carriers slide down. American weighs at a rate of 1 every 6 weeks. Each embarks 72 aircraft, 36 fighters, half again as many as the Yorktown class. Steel production surges. Aluminum flows from new plants in Washington state. The Hellcat's Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine delivers 2,000 horsepower, nearly double the Zero's Nakajima Sakai, 650 caliber. Browning machine guns replace the Wildcat's 4. Armor plate shields the pilot. Self-sealing tanks swallow 20 mm hits. Grumman test pilot Bob Hall pushes the prototype to 404 mph in level flight. Carrier Task Force. 58 forms under vice. Admiral Mark A. Mitcher. In January 1944, 12 Essex-class flat tops, 8 light carriers, and 7 fast battleships steam west. Intelligence from submarine patrols and code breakers at Pearl Harbor tracks Japanese air strength. Only 200 carrier aircraft remain. Half the 1941 total Japanese training pipelines collapse. Fuel shortages ground cadets after 100 hours. New pilots arrive with 40 hours total flight time. Admiral Minaichi Koga, Yamamoto's successor, shifts Zeros to land bases, preserving carriers for a decisive fleet action. On June 11, 1944, Task Force 58 strikes the Marianas. Hellcats fly 1,200 sorties in 3 days, destroying 150 Japanese aircraft on the ground. Saipan's airfields fall silent. Tokyo radios frantic orders. Concentrate all air power for the counterattack. Angle 1, Human Perspective, Lieutenant Tanaka, had flown 180 combat missions since 1941. His Zero bore 42 victory marks, 23 American, 19 British. He believed the enemy fighter pilot was a reckless amateur, trained to press the trigger and pray. On August 24th, he led his Chutai in textbook formation, expecting the familiar Wildcat bounce. Ensign James Jimmy Flatley, 23 years old, had 300 hours total flight time. His Hellcat squadron trained on instrument panels painted with Zero silhouettes. Instructors drilled one rule: never dogfight below 20,000 feet. Dive, shoot, extend. Flatley's hands trembled only once, on his first carrier trap. When the formations closed, Tanaka initiated a tight loop. Flatley's division rolled, inverted, and plunged. The Japanese ace felt the Hellcat's shadow cross his canopy before the tracers arrived. His wingman's radio crackled. "They're too fast." In 30 seconds, 3 Zeros trailed smoke. Tanaka escaped with a shredded elevator, the first doubt gnawing at his certainty. Angle 2, Tactical U.S. Navy doctrine evolved from Thatch's Weave to the 2-plane section, 4-plane division combat spread. Hellcats attacked in pairs, leader firing, wingman covering. At 350 knots, the F6F retained energy through vertical maneuvers. The Zero bled in horizontal turns. Japanese tactics relied on the Zero's 70-second 360-degree turn at 200 knots. Hellcat pilots refused the bait. They boom and zoom, 400-knot dive, 2,000-foot burst, 30-degree climb to reset. Radio discipline replaced shouted commands. Tally-ho! Bandits 2 o'clock high. Section lead engaging. In the first wake intercept, 6 Hellcats claimed 7 Zeros for no losses. Japanese after-action reports noted, enemy fighters refuse close combat. They strike and disappear upward. The Imperial Navy's tactical manual, unchanged since 1941, offered no counter. Angle 3. Technological, the F6F-3 weighed 9,200 pounds empty, nearly twice the Zero's 5,300. Yet the R2800 engine produced 2,000 horsepower on 100-octane fuel, granting a power-to-weight ratio superior in climb above 15,000 feet. Grumman's stout wing folded hydraulically, packing 36 fighters into an Essex-class hangar. 6 Browning M2 50 calibers fired 850 rounds per minute each, converging at 1,000 feet. A single 3-second burst delivered 180 slugs, enough to shear a Zero's spar. The Japanese 20mm Type 99 cannon carried only 60 rounds per gun. American gunners conserved ammunition through computed sights. Self-sealing tanks and 212 pounds of cockpit armor shrugged off 7.7mm hits that ignited Zeros. Damage reports from USS Enterprise showed Hellcats returning with 200 holes, engines still turning. Japanese maintenance crews counted rivets on returning. Fighters. American ordnancemen swapped cowlings in 20 minutes. Angle 4. Leadership Admiral Raymond A. Spruance commanded 5th Fleet with clinical precision. At Philippine Sea, he positioned Task Force 58, 180 miles west of Saipan, beyond land-based search range, yet within Hellcat combat radius. Vice Admiral Mitcher launched early, accepting night recovery risks to maximize daylight strikes. In Tokyo, Admiral Suemu Toyoda activated Operation A-Go, staking the mobile fleet on one battle. Without Yamamoto's caution, Japanese carriers sailed with 430 aircraft, 430 pilots, averaging 150 hours. Mitcher's air groups fielded 900 planes and 7,000 flight hours collectively. Radio intercepts confirmed the mismatch. Spruance held position. June 19, 1944, 10:45 hours, Philippine Sea. Radar operators aboard USS Lexington track 4 massive raids inbound from the west. 430 Japanese aircraft in layered waves. Vice Admiral Mitcher signals, "Launch everything." F6F Hellcats roar off 15 flight decks. 700 fighters climb to 25,000 feet, forming a 60-mile defensive arc. Lieutenant Commander Charles W. Brewer, VF-15 skipper from USS Essex, takes station at the center. His division spots the first strike, 69 aircraft under Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita, at 120 miles. Brewer vectors west, throttle to military power. The Hellcats intercept at 300 knots indicated. Japanese pilots, expecting wildcats, initiate climbing spirals. Hellcat pilots hold energy, diving in 4-plane sections. Tracers arc upward. 50 caliber rounds tear through unarmored fuselages. In the first 30 minutes, 220 Japanese aircraft fall. Lieutenant Alexander Vrasiu, VF-16, downs 6 VALs in 8 minutes. 1 burst per dive bomber. Radio chatter stays clinical. Splash 1 Judy, 11 o'clock low. Smoke trails stitch the horizon. 50 hours. The second wave, 47 aircraft, arrives piecemeal. Hellcats, rearmed on station, pounce from 30,000 feet. Ensign Wilbur Webb, VF-1, spots a formation of Zeros escorting Kate torpedo bombers. He rolls inverted, pushes the stick forward. The F6F accelerates to 420 knots. Webb fires at 800 feet. The lead Zero disintegrates. Fuel tanks erupt in orange fireballs visible from Saipan. Japanese pilots scatter, abandoning formation. Radio discipline collapses into frantic shouts. Baka fighters everywhere. By 14 240 Japanese aircraft lie scattered across 150 miles of ocean. U.S. losses: 23 Hellcats, 10 pilots. Mitcher launches a third intercept against the retreating strike. At 18:30, he risks night recovery. Deck crews wave glowing wands. 72 Hellcats trapped safely despite fuel exhaustion. June 20th. Japanese carriers Taiho and Shokaku burn from submarine torpedoes. Surviving aircraft, 43 total, limp toward Guam. Hellcats pursue. Another 65 fall in running battles. The Imperial Navy's carrier air arm ceases to exist as an offensive force. June 21st, 1944. Dawn over the Philippine Sea. The water stretches empty except for floating debris and oil slicks. Task Force 58 recovers the last stragglers. Hellcat pilots log 378 sorties in 48 hours. Japanese losses: 645 aircraft, 476 in combat, 169 on carrier decks when Taiho and Shokaku explode. U.S. Navy claims a 15.1 kill ratio. Actual combat records confirm 346 air-to-air victories for 29 Hellcats lost to enemy fire. 3 carriers sink. 2 more limp home crippled. Admiral Ozawa signals Tokyo. Fleet air strength annihilated. Saipan falls on July 9th. B-29 bases begin construction within weeks. The Marianas Turkey shoot costs Japan 3,000 experienced aircrew. Irreplaceable. American factories deliver 1,000 Hellcats per month. Grumman's Bethpage line runs 3 shifts. July 1944. Japanese naval aviation pivots to desperation. Admiral Toyota authorizes kamikaze units on October 25th. Pilots receive 40 hours of training before strapping into bomb-laden Zeros. Hellcat combat air patrols thicken. Radar pickets extend 100 miles. By Leyte Gulf in October, F6F pilots claim 300 more kills in 4 days. Production reaches 12,275 Hellcats total, enough to equip every carrier in the Pacific. Japanese industry manages 100 new Zeros for all of 1944. U.S. pilot rotation preserves experience. Japanese squadrons dissolve. Captured documents reveal orders to ram if ammunition runs dry. Hellcat armor shrugs off suicide hits. Only 2% of ramming attempts succeed. The F6F flies its last combat mission on August 15, 1945. Total score: 5,223 enemy aircraft destroyed, 75% of all U.S. Navy air victories. The Pacific sky, once Japanese domain, becomes American airspace without contest. In the vast blue expanse of the Philippine Sea, a single aircraft changed the war's trajectory. The F6F Hellcat did not win by elegance. It prevailed through brute force wrapped in calculated design. Armor where the Zero had none. Firepower where the enemy carried paper. Engines fed by an industrial heart Japan could no longer match. Japanese pilots, once lords of the sky, watched their myth shatter in seconds. A 3-second burst ended careers built over years. The Hellcat's shadow became the last thing hundreds saw before the ocean closed over them. Yet the true measure lies beyond kill tallies. One fighter forced an empire to abandon fleet battles for suicide charges. It opened the Marianas runway for B-29s that would burn Tokyo. It proved that technology, tempered by training and mass production, could break even the fiercest warrior code. Today, a restored Hellcat hangs in the National Air and Space Museum, paint-chipped, 50 caliber ports, still black with carbon. Children trace the bullet holes. The Pacific sky above Wake Island remains quiet. The lesson endures. Superiority is not given by tradition. It is built, flown, and fought for, one dive at a time.